Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Nerdy Misfits podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Connor.
And today, for the second episode in a row, we have Grey back at us with us again. Hello, Grey.
How's it going, guys?
Yes, today is actually a special episode. It's being uploaded on a Friday, and the reason for this is we'll be discussing the conclusion and the entirety of the Obi-Wan series. So that goes without saying, but there will be many spoilers ahead for the entire show, so if you have not watched or completed it yet, pause this podcast right now, go watch it, then come back, and we'll be, and you can join us in the conversation.
Exactly, because we will not hold back with the spoilers, especially on this special episode. So let's just get right into it. So obviously, for some of the listeners, they probably already know that I personally am a huge Star Wars fan when it comes to the movies, TV shows, the books, everything like that. Connor, you've went down a rabbit hole recently to get more into the animated shows.
Yes, I've watched everything basically that's out now for the most part, other than the third animated show. I can't even remember.
Oh, Star Wars Resistance.
Yes, I haven't seen any of Resistance.
And then Grey, your Star Wars knowledge is more limited than both of ours.
Yeah, I'm someone who hasn't even completed all of the recent movies. So, but I am actually more up to date with a lot of the recent shows. But I just feel like a lot of the shows.
So have you watched both seasons of Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan?
Yep, those I've seen all of them.
Okay.
So you've seen all the live action shows then?
Yes.
Is there a reason you haven't seen the movies? Or is it just the last movie? Or?
It was just like a huge amount of drive. Like, I didn't see it initially when it came out, and then I never felt the need to go and watch it. And especially after, I want to say after, a year or so after they've been out, no one was really talking to, saying very nice things about them. Nobody was telling me, hey, you gotta go and watch that movie. It was fantastic. Unless they were trying to curse me, it seems.
That's fair.
So.
But you saw 7.
Yes, I saw the first one. I'm pretty sure I saw the first one on release.
Yeah.
So
I think we saw it together.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I think I saw it 3 times in theaters. The third time I fell asleep during it.
Yikes. Okay. Well, understand.
I mean, The Force Awakens was good the first couple times I watched it.
Yeah, it was definitely the best.
The best of the trilogy.
What do you mean? It's got a cute droid rolling around. How can you not like it?
BB-8 is fantastic.
You always gotta have your R2-D2 ripoff.
Exactly. No, but BB-8 had his own personality,
Am I right, Lola?
Hey, don't diss Lola. Lola's great, alright?
I mean, of the droids that we get, Lola's, cute in design, worthless in personality.
Do you guys know why she's named Lola?
Yeah, because it's named after what's-her-face's something or whatever.
Carrie Fisher, she had a bird, a pet bird growing up, and that was the name of the bird.
That's why it's a flying little droid.
That's why it's a flying
droid.
droid.
Carrie Fisher's the...
She was Princess Leia.
Oh, Princess Leia.
Okay. Yeah, before she passed away.
Okay. I mean...
Yeah. Anyways, so what was everyone's thoughts initially? Let's give a rating first.
Out of 10?
Yeah.
I'd say a solid 8.
For me, I don't know. I still enjoyed a lot of the moments and stuff. I mean, 7 or 8 in between somewhere.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the 7 or 8 range as well. So we're all, unfortunately, we are not polarizing individuals, and we all enjoyed it.
But
I'm sure there were parts we enjoyed and parts we didn't enjoy. Where I'm sure, even in our own friend group, we have people that have said that it's a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, so outside of the podcast, we did ask a few of our friends to kind of give it a rating out of 10. So some of the ratings we got was our one friend said it was 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Another person said it was 8.5 out of 10.
So we have a range. We have
a little
a
bit in
range.
between,
And like anything, there's things people like.
Range or one outlier.
Well, it's hard to say. We don't have enough friends, I guess.
Yeah.
Didn't ask more people.
Yeah, we need to, okay.
That's why you guys need to join Misfit Island.
Join the Misfit Island.
Grow our friend group.
Please. But anyways, yeah, so let's go through. Let's start with Grey. What was some of your favorite moments?
I mean, a lot of my favorite moments are probably concentrated closer to the end, but I don't know, that's kind of how a lot of shows end up going, where you get the climax and then, some of the final fights and the fall off. So I was going to say my 100% favorite moment was definitely when Darth Vader had force stopped the ship from leaving. I don't know, there was just, when that happened, I was just yo, that was so sick.
It was a very you hear all this as someone who hasn't read any of the comics or the books, the extended canon and legends and stuff, it definitely was something that was finally holy, this is the Darth Vader that people talk about, right? This powerful guy that stopped a ship from leaving.
He is super OP though.
And then he ripped it apart, and it was just like, you can tell that obviously he was not happy. He was not a happy camper, right? So that was really cool. And then obviously he fights the third sister without pulling his own lightsaber, using the Force.
Which is a great fight.
That was just, it was like, you're not even worth it. Like, that's how weak you are in comparison to me. Like, and that was cool to see. So I'd have to say, I agree. That was definitely a really... I liked the dynamic between Leia and Obi-Wan. I thought that they were pretty great together. I thought the casting for Leia was really great. I thought she did a great job.
Like me personally, it's not like a casting thing. It might just come down to like a characterization thing with me, where it's like, even in all the movies that Leia exists in, I'm just not a huge Leia fan at all.
I will say there were times where like they made her out to be super smart, and then she did the dumbest thing. So
that definitely
so you're kind
happened.
of like, okay, like you're supposed to recognize that obviously she's a kid, but then at the same time, why is she doing these or has these
big
intelligent
ideas
moments? But you're just like, if she can recognize this, then why can't she understand that?
Yeah, that's fair.
And those running scenes.
Yeah, the few chase scenes are not they're not
like,
great.
Obviously, I'm not like, it's not a complete fault of.
But the running scenes did look foolish, though.
No, yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I understand why they're foolish. Doesn't make them any less foolish.
No, exactly. I
think,
100%.
but my favorite part was probably the flashbacks.
Do
I think that they could have done a way better job of deepfakes and make Hayden look way younger? Yes, but I just loved the way they used the flashbacks, like how it was, Obi-Wan in the present thinking about Anakin and like what he might, or Darth Vader and what he might do, and then it flashes back to Anakin literally doing that in their little practice duel, and then it just shows that Darth Vader isn't fully Darth Vader yet. He's still Anakin. Like, he still has those tendencies. And
Agreed.
Obi-Wan still recognizes those tendencies, and he still does them. Like, he's still very brash, and
He's definitely carried over some of the standard personality traits that he had.
And that's, from what I understand, like, I'm not super into the books and stuff, but from some of the videos and stuff I've watched to try and get more knowledge about Darth Vader, it sounds like when he's fully Darth Vader, a lot of that stuff is no longer a thing.
Correct.
Like, he literally has killed Anakin's none of those traits carried over.
Which is
anymore.
foreshadowed a bit in episode 6 when there's the conversation between Obi-Wan and Vader, and he goes like, no, Anakin is dead.
Well, I actually really loved that when that line came out.
Yes.
Because it brings a huge callback to like the whole, in the original series when Obi-Wan was like, nah, like Darth Vader killed your father.
Yeah,
and that's the whole point, because it technically is true.
And I'm like, but just
I heard it from his own.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Just the fact that it wasn't Obi-Wan just kind of saying that as a metaphor. The fact that like Anakin had said it like himself.
Darth Vader told me.
Yeah.
Straight from the mouth.
Yeah.
Which that particular scene is actually one of my favorite moments, in my opinion, from this series. And the thing to add it to is the fact that he slashes Vader's helmet and it like cuts
It's
off.
the opposite side
Yeah,
that
so
Ahsoka cut off too. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
In Rebels, Ahsoka fights Darth Vader and she cuts off the other half. And it goes to show you that Ahsoka couldn't break Vader to bring Anakin back to the light, and that was the one half.
Mm-hmm.
And then Obi-Wan couldn't break Anakin, like bring Anakin back from the dark from the other half. Only Luke ever completely takes off the entire helmet. The
That's
other
true,
two
yeah.
people that you could argue are the closest, other than Padme.
Yeah,
rest in
Padme's
peace.
dead.
But those two are probably the closest living people at the time that could potentially bring him back.
But I enjoyed too about it, and I guess I don't know if you want to classify this as a potential Easter egg or not when it comes to the scene, is because in Return of the Jedi, when Luke takes off his helmet, you see Darth Vader's face, and he has a giant burn mark on the side of his face where Obi-Wan hit him. Slashed him in this episode. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that was just like coincidence or that was properly intentional.
Yeah, never really know.
But you never know with Star Wars. But I also enjoyed the proper like audio effect.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just about to mention, the sound design here was super
amazing.
good.
It was also Sith eyes and blue eyes. I don't know if you've caught on that too. Every time
there was a lot of
Anakin
effects.
peeked out more, it was his blue eyes and obviously more of Anakin's voice.
Yeah.
But whenever it was more Vader-y, they had like the more stronger Vader-y tone, but he had Sith eyes.
Yeah, there was a lot of detail put into this scene,
and that fight in general too, with like Obi-Wan going
actually seeing Vader fight, not
Vader
just be straight.
Obi-Wan not running off like Jack Sparrow in the earlier episode, like
you can't run, Obi-Wan.
Exactly. Like, he's fully, like, they're both, like, almost, I don't want to say at full power, but they're pretty
there was when it got to the full Force rock fight, I was getting kind of annoyed. I know Darth Vader.
You mean like Obi-Wan being an earthbender?
Yeah, no, that was actually probably the worst for me. With the actual defeat of how that went with the rocks, I wasn't a personal fan of that. I think that it should have probably been like pure a lightsaber out skill, because throwing things around is actually more of like Darth Vader's signature thing, is it not? Like, from what I understand, one of the things that he usually does in fights is he throws things.
It's funny because, well, this is gets more into like Star Wars lore, but it does seem like the big thing is always flexing your power of the Force is like a big deal between. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I know like that's why like when you see Dooku fight Yoda, he's like does all this Force stuff first, and then he's like, I guess it can't be decided with the Force.
Yeah.
Right? And that's like in Darth Sidious, his whole spiel is he thinks lightsabers are stupid. He doesn't, because he feels like if you're powerful enough, you shouldn't need one. At least from the lore that I've recognized.
Yeah,
like, he has it, but his is more of like a joke to the Jedi, because he like uses all these really rare materials that Jedi don't like to use, just another way of laughing.
Yeah.
At
So, but the thing is, it's like it shows a weird power balance for me, where it's like I know Obi-Wan is like regaining his power throughout the series. You know, he felt like he lost touch with the Force.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't used it in 10 years.
But that's the thing. It's like, okay, now it hasn't been all that long, and now he's like doing crazy rock throws where. Just in the last episode, we saw Darth Vader stop a ship, but he's like, "Oh, these rocks, coward!"
But you have to keep in mind, it talks about in the prequel trilogy, how much the Force is attached to your emotions, and that's why Jedi usually do their best not to have their emotions impactful. Where in the Sith, it's the complete opposite.
And it's also clear that it's not Darth Vader, right? It's clear at this point, he is definitely still... It's like tunnel vision with Obi-Wan, where it's like, you see it when they're like, when the Grand Inquisitor's even like, we could stop this whole... thing, this whole
rebellion almost.
This whole system that they have set up to save Jedi and the people that are against us. We can catch them right now. And he's all like, Obi-Wan
is the only one I care about.
Right? And like it shows that like he's still like that blind. And
it was like blind hatred and need for revenge.
And his emotions were still clearly taking over, which is another reason why you could argue that he lost, is because he was letting his emotions take over again.
Well, I know that's what the movies always go with, where it's like that, but isn't it also like, because he's so angry and stuff, shouldn't his Force for the dark side be strong?
Well, you have to still be able to control it in a way.
Yeah, you have to be able to control, because you don't want your emotions to get the best of you, so you're unable to control it.
It's more like you have to use that anger as fuel, but you still have to control it. You can't
able to control your emotions.
You have to make good decisions still, right?
Which you can make up in the interpretation for him throwing the rocks could have been Obi-Wan being frustrated.
I thought the imagery was good, because it had Obi-Wan potentially about to lose all the rocks that were piled on top of him, where it shows like that he is having dark side-esque thoughts of like doubt, right? He has doubt because he's hearing Anakin, he's hearing Vader, he's hearing all these mix of like different lines that they've both said, and he's feeling like a failure. But then he recalls Leia and he recalls Luke, and he's like, I have a new purpose. And that's kind of what really reconnects him with the Force, right?
Which in my opinion, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the main thing that was weird for me with I don't know, like, the reconnecting of the Force, isn't that attachment? Are we supposed to be not attachment? The Jedi always confuse me with
I feel like that will definitely be part of his training with Qui-Gon. Attachments aren't necessarily.
Well, this is why I wanted to touch upon, is that when kind of what we just discussed, when he's getting piled on, right, and he ends up throwing the rocks, so on and so forth, you see Obi-Wan almost like touching into the dark side a little bit, because even you said that's usually Vader's tricks and like the Siths to not use a lightsaber. So the way I thought about this is throughout the entire show, we're looking at Obi-Wan. He's trying to connect with his fallen master, Qui-Gon Jinn. He's trying to really connect, right? But it's not until he taps into the dark side of the Force just briefly that by the end of it, all of a sudden he's seeing Qui-Gon Jinn. Because
how can you truly understand the Force if you don't know both sides?
Exactly, and that's what the whole conference... Are you familiar with something called the Grey Jedi?
No.
So it's literally... the proper term in canon, I think, is called a Wayseeker? No, not a Wayseeker. There's a term, but I can't remember it right now. It talks about in the High Republic series. But what it is, it's literally the gray area between a Jedi and the Sith. So it said that Count Dooku at one point was a Grey Jedi, Ahsoka's a Grey Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn, Yoda. So it's basically these people that are so powerful in the Force that they're able to touch in both the light side and the dark side, but they're literally the gray area to be able to control, and that's supposedly how you're able to see Force ghosts, for example. And even like Luke at the end of his trilogy, I guess, The Return of the Jedi, he sees the Force ghosts at the end.
Which is also what clearly makes Luke like obviously he's like the chosen one. I'm gonna put quotes here, right? In terms of like, he's more of the chosen one to really bring the Jedi to a new age because he clearly understands that attachments are useful. They can be useful.
They can be, yeah.
And that because that's literally what brought his dad back.
Exactly.
Right. So like and that's like the type of person you'd want to be like, hey, you see Luke use Force choke. You see him use dark side.
You see, abilities. You should say.
It's weird to say that Force choke is
well,
an
I was gonna
ability.
say, I'm not someone who really
like
likes the separation of stuff like that. Like, it seems like super arbitrary to say this one type of thing that any one person could do with the Force. That's a particular dark side way of doing things. Like the way you had described to me the one time when Obi-Wan had chopped multiple limbs off. It's like, that's a dark side move. I'm like,
I don't remember what the name is, but it's a Force. It's a dark side
because there's actually like 7 different styles of Jedi lightsaber fighting styles.
Yeah.
So there's like 7 different ones where I think the Jedi usually do like 1 to 4, while the Sith are literally taught in all 7 because it's actually a proper trick with your lightsaber to cut off limbs. Like, it's a very common technique to be able to cut off.
As you'd imagine in the limb cutting off series of all time.
Exactly.
When you're using laser swords, it only makes sense that cutting off someone's limbs is probably a useful technique.
It's beneficial to know,
But yeah, I thought there were a couple things I didn't like about that fight though. Like the finale fight, I thought was great. The one thing I didn't like was that was clearly Obi-Wan's chance to finish off Darth Vader in terms of like, at the moment, he was going in like, one of us needs to, Sith logic. Only Sith to deal with absolute. One of us needs to die. But anyways, he goes there with obviously the mindset of like, okay, it's gonna be me or him. What's gonna happen? And then he leaves him, and it's just like what could have made it just slightly better for me. And this is something I actually talked to one of my friends was, what if he sensed Luke being in trouble first, and that was the reason he's like, I have more important things. The future is more important. I'm going to go save Luke. Because he senses Luke in the ship when he's leaving.
Yeah.
So why not make it that bit earlier to give him a reason for leaving Vader?
Well, I mean, if you're going up against a fight and then you see the face of your friend that you haven't seen in 10 years after you basically killed him.
But doesn't that just make you... He literally did the same thing.
I was going to say, it's kind of like... It's such a rehash where it's just like you already did this.
Yeah, you clearly didn't learn
from your life. Yeah, you didn't... Yeah, it's like, what kind of...
Technically, he did a better job the first time, because at least he was on fire, and he's like, alright, he's dead.
Yeah.
This time he knew...
I think
he knew there was no way he was going to die.
Another thing you had mentioned to me, which I think also could have been something, is it's like, like some other forcing him away.
The Grand Inquisitor could have showed up to save him.
Inquisitor showed up being like, they were monitoring. They're obviously not too far away, and they're crap.
Where was the Star Destroyer when Obi-Wan left?
It's true.
They're just like, I'm sure Vader's fine.
It's fine.
Just let him leave. But, I definitely thought either the Grand Inquisitor coming to save Darth Vader and be like, hey, that Obi-Wan ditches because of that, or Obi-Wan senses Luke and is like, he's looking at Vader, maybe he's even thinking of finishing him off, and then is like, this is more important. Luke's more important than...
I see the point you're trying to make. No, I do agree that could have been better.
I get what you're saying, was where Obi-Wan is like, it's very emotional seeing Anakin.
Yeah.
But it's just, he does just end up turning around, leaving him, and then God knows how many more people and things Darth Vader kills and chaos that ensues.
But you also have to keep in mind that he's obviously at that time, like, obviously it's not said, but he's probably, I'm assuming, thinking of Leia too. Like, that was such a big thing on his plate as well, right? But obviously it's not really talked about. But I know what you mean. Yeah, no, definitely. I think I don't want to say it's a missed opportunity, but obviously because story reasons and everything, that scene has to happen for a couple things.
I also didn't like the constant going back and forth to Reva, but I understand like you can't just have it be a straight fight.
Yeah.
The entire episode.
If in all honesty, if we're trying to think about putting in cutbacks, I think putting in cutbacks to another duel between...
Yeah, another flashback would have been great.
Not even like flashback, maybe like one of the flashback, but like in one of the new scenes of like Obi-Wan versus Anakin, because I think it would be cool to show the differences in between like some of the fighting style that Anakin is using now as Darth Vader, because you can even tell during this whole fight.
It was our first time really seeing Vader fight.
Well, he's a lot
really
more
moving.
Yeah, like he's a lot more. I'll say
he's not episode.
No, yeah, he's a lot more fluid, and that's what's good. But it still shows that he's still restricted in terms of how Anakin fought continues to. How like Darth Vader fights by like I big smack you.
Yeah, he's
while
big
Anakin
power.
is like I'm big outspeed and outmaneuver you, and it's like
Anakin's like super aggressive, flashy, and I think it's Form 5 or Form 4.
Potentially,
I can't remember what
4.
form
I want to say.
But it's like an aggressive form that Anakin uses as you.
Right, and then I think Obi-Wan is
defensive.
The defensive form, so on and so forth.
But it was still good. It was cool to see Darth Vader actually somewhat move around.
Yeah.
You know? Like, obviously, you could still tell he wasn't...
Yeah,
like you said, he definitely wasn't fighting like
no,
Anakin, so it would have been cool.
You can see he has the mobility restrictions. He's not fighting how
I don't know.
Anakin fights.
Anakin
He's fighting how Darth Vader
I don't know
fights.
how some people would have felt, but it would have been cool, even if they just flash back to, like, the fight in 3. Because obviously there was so much...
like on Mustafar?
There was so much mirroring, like, the whole beginning when they're both there, like, the lines they say.
Mm-hmm. Thank gosh it didn't happen, but as soon as, like, Obi-Wan gets, like, not, like, broken down to the ground and, like, Darth Vader's on top, I was like, please don't make a high ground joke. Please don't do it. I was so happy they didn't, because I feel like that would have been way too much fan service if Vader's like, I have the high ground.
Yeah.
It would have been
it
would have just destroyed the entire scene.
It would have turned it into a lot more of a cheesy thing.
Yeah. They almost basically started their duel the exact same way
They
as
did,
they did.
but they
right?
kind of, like, changed roles almost.
Which was cool. It was a very... I liked the mirroring of, like, obviously their... And it was nice to see, from a canon standpoint, in 4, you get... You know, Darth Vader saying, like, well, the last time we met, you were the master, and now I'm the master, or whatever, right? So it would have really sucked if we didn't get Obi-Wan kind of wrecking Darth Vader, right? Because from a canon perspective, it makes zero sense for us to leave with Obi-Wan totally getting wrecked by Darth Vader, and that's the last time we've seen them fight. Yeah. So it was cool to see Obi-Wan kind of wreck him at the end, and it's kind of like, no, Obi-Wan's clearly still is above you in terms of, like, whether it's controlling his emotions, whatever it be that's...
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously in terms of caliber, he's always said to have been better than Obi-Wan, but it's just a matter of how he conducts himself that's making him
It's
lose.
like who has stronger mental, not Anakin.
Yeah, so...
But that at least kind of makes the Episode 4 still make sense, because it is, obviously, you can make the argument Darth Vader never really wins because... Even in 4, like, Obi-Wan basically lets him win, and we all know he doesn't really win, because Obi-Wan's still... He's just part of the Force, and he's there. He's a Force
He's still better than Anakin, you know? But I do enjoy throughout the entire series that we have certain points that mirror things that have happened across the trilogies and stuff, too, right? Even, like, in Episode 1, we have Leia has a stand-in, similar to how that happened in Phantom Menace with Padme. Obviously, Vader trying to cut off... Obi-Wan's limbs and just having him burn alive. Obviously, that's a mirror to that as well.
That was just salty revenge.
That's exactly what that was.
That was like, you made me freaking burn. I'm gonna show you what it's like.
Show you up. You can make even like the scene with like Vader trying to pull the ship. You can make that's like a mirror to something that happens in Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. Rey tries to do that as well against Kylo. Yeah. There's that entire scene there. There's probably other scenes that mirror, but those are the ones that kind of come to mind.
That's fair. That is fair. Definitely tried to get a lot of Easter eggs in there for a lot of fans.
Easter eggs, but not so much that it was like any of them really felt forced overall.
Well, yeah, and then not to the point where it feels like a rehash of what previously happened, where it's just like...
It was an original story, and it kind of felt nice. And a cool thing, too, is even one of the Easter eggs that neither of you would know, but what Obi-Wan's wearing at the end of the Episode 6 is actually what he wears a lot in the comics. With, like, those goggles that he has around his like his neck. Like, that costume that he's is actually very similar to what he wears in the comics. Oh, we even got the hello there. Yeah, we got the hello there. That was I did not expect that.
The third time.
Content, though.
For the third time.
Yeah.
You know, because he has the hello there. Because he says it to Luke, says it to Grievous, and says it to Luke as a kid. I guess technically he's a kid in both, but
he's a little bit
a
of
much younger kid.
Yeah. I was very curious because, like, obviously we didn't see Luke through too much throughout the series, obviously, except being a background character.
Yeah. It was a lot more clearly focused. It was very Leia focused, but when you think about the original trilogy, the original trilogy is a lot more Luke focused, and then
the thing is, how does Leia know who Obi-Wan is?
Oh, I thought they handled that great too with the ending where he was like, can't tell anyone.
That was a very emotional scene, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and because it makes sense, like you would almost think. I know I saw some people talking about like he should have force wiped her, like why? But it's like, it's kind of like how would she know to ask Obi-Wan for help? And now we know why she has, because
she's went on an adventure with him.
Yeah, exactly. Like she may not remember everything at that point, but she remembers, hey, there was this Jedi that helped me, or that has helped my family before. So it made sense. Also, Luke's aunt's a badass.
Right?
Like, she's just like, Uncle Owen's just like, and she's like, no, we're defending right here. Pulls out some blasters.
Yeah, good to go.
You're just like, well, all right.
That's where we're going.
And she also just like owns him because
Yeah, he's just like, whose fault do you think that is?
yeah,
I was
he's like,
yup, you tell
Ben's
him.
gone, and she's like, I wonder why. Like, who's pushing him away?
Yikes.
I guess it's maybe not a bad idea to have a Jedi around.
Which I was excited though, because with going through the entire series, obviously with Luke being the background character, in A New Hope, Luke still knows of Old Man Ben.
Yeah. No, that's
so I was like waiting to like see just
them meet.
something to
Yeah.
connect them, right? And obviously it was the last few minutes. But I was still happy we got some of that to pay off for The New Hope as well.
Yeah, now they've met, so it's also, you know, I'm
More
sure
canonized, I should say.
it does seem like I would assume Obi-Wan's not always visiting him, but I'm sure every now and then he pops in, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And like the way they do it in 4, right? Like Luke is just like, oh, you mean, kind of sounds like Ben.
Yeah, Old Man Ben,
Old Man
Kenobi
Ben.
or whatever.
You mean Old Man Ben?
Or, you know, he visited him maybe a couple times when he was a kid, but like not very much
He's
later.
like a distant relative kind of thing, you know?
Well, or even just like a neighbor that he knows of, or it's just
Yeah,
like, oh yeah,
exactly.
someone you've seen in
He was always
in town.
around. You know, he would give me
Yeah,
some
well, it's
stuff.
implied that Obi-Wan is now traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So obviously he's not going to be around, but he's also around.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything you guys drastically didn't like? Like, I mean, personally, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Third Sister.
Yeah, I didn't like reading.
I wish we had a little bit more to more understand
It's
her thought
funny
process.
because I thought once she started getting character development, where you almost felt like, okay, like stuff
Kinda
is
feel
starting to make
bad almost,
stuff is starting to
but
make sense.
yeah.
Then they just rush through it, and then it's like instantly Obi-Wan turns her in a way or manipulates her want for revenge to work in his favor, and then she gets stabbed. First of all, she's lived being stabbed twice by Darth Vader. I feel like that's a little questionable, being stabbed as a youngling. I can see her at this point because she clearly has powers of the dark side. Like, you can make the argument, okay, her revenge, like she can live being stabbed. It's just, you know, you feel bad for Qui-Gon, and, you know, like, guy gets stabbed insta-death kind of thing, but freaking younglings getting stabbed.
Hey, man, Darth Maul got cut in half, and he lived for various years after that,
you
too.
can also make the argument that Qui-Gon let it, like, he was totally
accepting
okay
it,
of accepting death, like, all power to him. But, she lived twice being stabbed, and do you really think Anakin at that point in Revenge, in the
in the revenge of this?
he was gonna... And the other thing is, from what I've read and seen, is Anakin killed anyone that ever... Or Darth Vader killed anyone that knew he was Anakin. Or ever seen his face as Darth Vader. He kills them. No questions asked, they're dead. You accidentally see him getting out of the shower, you're dead. You know what I mean? Like,
take the helmet off.
I remember how much he showers. Yes.
Like, you see the back. Like, you see. Is it 4 or 5? You see the back of his head. You see like one of the Death Star people come in, and the commander or something, and they see the back of his head. That's fine. But if you see his face, you're dead.
Yeah.
And so we're supposed to believe as fans that he's known that Reva's known who he is this entire time.
Well, I'm hoping that we're gonna get if there's a book that comes out about that character, then I'll probably read it or check it out, because I feel like there's a missed potential with the Third Sister.
Yeah, it just felt like she was...
Overall, she was shaky for me throughout a lot of the series. Like, initially, it's like, okay, she's like some sort of weird, edgy Inquisitor that doesn't fit in with the other Inquisitors, like, at all. And it's like, how...
Well, it's because she wants to be the Grand.
Well, no, but it's like, but how isn't that shaking up more issues than it does? And then it's like, well, the argument is...
stand out, right?
Well, yeah, then the argument is, well, it's like,
she wants
Vader,
to be the Grand Inquisitor.
Vader knew the whole time, so yeah, her acting out, it's like, oh yeah, I know why she's doing that and what's going on the whole time.
We're supposed to believe the person that had no problem just cutting off some random innocent lady's hands has no problem just killing a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole
I thought
thing
that
of,
was
seeing
hella
yourself.
Yeah, like
cliche.
it was like she's so driven on the revenge that it's like she loses to him on the planet. I'm like, shouldn't that be done? I thought she should have died, and then it's like, no, now she's got to go kill Luke.
Yeah,
that's the best way to get back at him. And it's like some son that he doesn't even know where he is, where he exists. Like,
yeah,
that's
technically
the
Vader
best.
at this point doesn't even know these exist.
Yeah, it's true.
And even throughout the movies, like the trilogy, it's like Vader's at the point where it's like, no, it's either you're gonna join me or I'm gonna kill you, Luke. That's your options.
No in between.
So it's like whether he dies or not, it's like, oh, he didn't join me. Oh well, but at least he's dead.
But do you think like the Third Sister's gonna get some type of redemption arc in some form
Does she
of media?
deserve one though?
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
but like, who cares? That's the thing.
No,
I'm trying to say,
I know.
like,
What like
her story was like, like I said, some of it was starting to get at least interesting. Where okay, she was one of the younglings that they showed at the very beginning of the show, right?
Yeah.
She's a survivor. Then,
Which she's technically not the only survivor.
But then Anakin knows
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, but she's a survivor that got stabbed.
Yes.
It's one thing to be like Grogu and someone helped you escape, to be determined who. But
I think it's a librarian.
you think, yeah, she's powerful.
I think
She's powerful. She's kind of an asshole.
It said that I think in the canon that said that she was trying to like save some of the.
It's probably
Isn't the librarian that when Obi-Wan was trying to figure out where the
I've seen fan theories that it was
where the clone planet was? Was that the librarian who talked to him? It's like,
Yeah,
if it's not in the archives, it's not here. I'm like, what kind of stick-upness is this? Are you just that, like, nobody could break into my library and get away with it?
Well, she's definitely a very intelligent Jedi, but yeah.
I'm assuming she is, yes. But I just mean that's the time I remember, and I'm kind of like,
just, we were supposed to believe that she got stabbed, which is already, like, Anakin wasn't taking any prisoners when he was, going ham on those young ones.
Let's be real. Can Anakin tell if someone's dead? He left Obi-Wan. He was just like, buried in rocks, good enough. Goodbye. Don't need to use my Force shenanigans to see if there's a Force-sensitive person here. Probably, meh. It's fine.
Probably because a youngling should die when you get stabbed.
Well, I'm mainly talking about his fight.
Freaking the lightsabers.
The buried in rocks Obi-Wan. It's like, then he just walks away. I'm like, you don't want to check his body, make sure it's dead or anything? No.
Well, then you'd have to save him from the rocks.
I mean, you could just sit there, like, he walked away.
Apparently she wasn't stabbed when she was a youngling, though. She was able to survive by hiding under the corpse of the other younglings in the group she was with.
Yes,
so
that's what she says. But you have to remember the way in Episode 5, if you rewatch it, then it's just either horrible directing in Episode 5, because the way they do it is they show flashbacks when Darth Vader is stabbing her as the third sister. It flashes back to Anakin stabbing her.
That's fair.
Whoops. That's either horrible directing, because why on earth would you flash back to something that didn't happen? Right? Like, that's what I mean. Like, she definitely...
The only direction I could see for that, if it isn't the initial stabbing, is for some reason she's remembering in a very first-person view
of her friends?
Yeah, Anakin killing her friends, which is just like...
But where would she have been? She was on the bridge. Like, she definitely got stabbed. The way it was definitely shown... She got stabbed and then probably hit among her friends.
I think the stabbing actually works better for a story anyway. So I'll say she got stabbed, but I can't.
And it's very like sad, hiding amongst your friend's corpse is messed up as shit, right?
I think that's people do that.
Yeah, but it's.
In other stories, it's not an actually uncommon trope, but I'm sure it's very scarring.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous because look at how the clones killed people. They freaking were shooting. They were clearly dead, and they kept shooting dead bodies. Like, you're telling me that they weren't doing that to the younglings?
I don't know. Trying to use logic in Star Wars sometimes doesn't make sense. I already told you. Like, the people don't double tap. People don't check. People don't do this because then stories wouldn't exist.
But that's what I'm trying to argue is that in Order 66, they did. The clones shot things that were dead.
Just to be safe.
Yeah, to be safe.
Anakin's not a clone.
But he marched up there with clones. They were probably shooting people. Who you think Anakin's the one who collected all the bodies?
Yeah, maybe.
He wasn't the one doing that.
He's too busy getting his limbs cut off 20 minutes later.
He's got the Force.
There's a good chance that the clones were like grabbing all those younglings and being like, "This Jedi's not dead. Better check."
Well, at the time, dude, blasters don't go through people. Yeah, they can shoot dead bodies.
I'm starting to really question blasters because it feels like sometimes they're like these crazy one-shot tools, and then sometimes it's like
really depends where you're going against.
Flesh wound.
That's why you just need the Mandalorian blaster with everything. Yeah. Just absolutely vaporize somebody.
But yeah, so I mean, we could debate whether she got stabbed or not forever, but either way, she clearly did. She clearly lived. Whatever. But the thing that makes her even worse is it's so rushed because then all of a sudden she goes from being, okay, I want her whole shtick, her entire life, I guess, really, has been to get revenge. And then she fails, obviously. And then she goes to get her revenge by killing Luke. And then all of a sudden, in super, super cliche fashion, I can't do it.
I think it's supposed to be, if I was to picture it, it's some sort of weak cliche.
Yeah, I'm not able to kill him.
Mirroring of Anakin's revenge, where it's like, Anakin wants revenge against Obi-Wan. Look, he still has the hatred. And then it's like her. Oh, it fell off.
That's why they show her flashing back again, like, as she flashes back to, like, seeing herself in Luke, right? And it's kind of like, it's been done before in so many forms of media where it's just kind of like, oh, give me a, like, for me it was just kind of like, give me a break, like, you can't do it. And the other thing is, this is part of the problem with a show like this, is there is no stakes when it comes to the kids.
Yeah.
We know Leia's gonna be fine. We know Luke's gonna be fine. We know Obi-Wan's gonna be fine. Because they have to make it to, to the trilogy. So, like, when that stuff... you're not even worried when you're seeing Luke run for her, because you're like, there's nothing that's going to happen to him. What's she going to do?
Which begs up a question then is, so you've watched all of Rebels now, right?
Yeah.
So what was your thoughts when they tried to kill off the Grand Inquisitor for that, like, 2 episodes?
I knew he wasn't dead.
Because, the third sister got killed. The third sister tried to kill him.
Based on all the interviews with the actor of the Grand Inquisitor, it wasn't spoiled. He didn't spoil anything, but just the way he talks, you know that he, they almost knew people were going to be mad.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's fine, because his alien species has, like, I think it's like 2 hearts or 2 stomachs. Something really random, but
like, yeah, I wasn't really concerned about him. I knew that he was definitely going to show up in some way. I didn't know it was just going to be like,
I'm
to
back.
Flex on third sister and be like, we knew the whole time, you traitor. But
yikes.
I wasn't one of the people that was like, oh my god. I was like,
I know the fans
especially
were
so
peeved
it was
about
so early, right? Wasn't it the first step?
First or second, yeah.
And it's like, dude, we still have a whole rest of the show. Like,
relax.
relax.
But I know a lot of people were like, they can't just kill it. That means, like, Rebels isn't canon. And there was, like, this whole thing about, yes, Rebels isn't canon, but Ahsoka's getting her own show. But it's not canon, don't worry. There was, like, a huge thing that people were going stupid crazy for.
But, yeah, I thought I'm just... Overall, I wasn't a fan of... And then the thing is, like... It almost makes more sense that she would have... It would have been better if she did die in some way, because she knows way too much.
Yeah, and now she's just gonna...
She knows Luke, she knows Leia, like, she knows who both of them are. She knows who Darth Vader is. Like, she literally knows just as much as every other main character. She knows more than some main characters.
She knows more than Luke. And Leia. Actually.
Yeah, she could have saved them from some incesty events. Like, hey, by the way, you have a sister out there. Don't be kissing random girls
until you know who their parents are.
Yeah, Luke, can I get your whole family tree, please?
You just need to know.
I just need to verify.
Oh, you're adopted. It's not going to do it for me, sorry.
Yeah, that's...
I have to do a blood test.
But yeah, I didn't like the cliche thing, and obviously she puts her... And it was nice to see, like, Obi-Wan tell her, like, it's because, you're back, and, like, you're not like him. Like,
I wanted to like her as a character.
Same, like, I thought some parts were cool, like, interesting, like, her being a youngling and working her way as an Inquisitor, and then obviously she had, like, the whole Force pull thing.
Force interrogation.
Which was nice.
Which cool seems like somebody who wouldn't want to live. They could force interrogate somebody? Mm.
But, she felt too forced at some points, where they were pushing her too much sometimes. I have no idea if there will be a season 2 of...
I know all the, Hayden and, Ewan McGregor, they both want, a season 2 or, another special or something.
And if there was, it feels like it would have been better to build her up through another season, It did feel really rushed, some of the stuff for her character. But,
I can see where you're going with that, though.
Especially when you're literally cutting off random people's limbs, and then, she can't, because she lost to the person? Wouldn't that make you want revenge more?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've gone to that far at that point, But it is it is also weird, you killed Anakin's kid that he doesn't even know about. Wow, you got him.
Got him. No, I know what you mean, though, yeah.
And yeah, obviously there was a couple deep fake things that could have been done a lot better. I don't know why. You can almost argue probably there was no deep faking on even Hayden in the flashback in episode 5 during the practice duel with Obi-Wan. It almost felt like there, and if there was, it was not great, or they didn't have enough time to render out a good deep fake, because I know a lot of people complain. I was too focused on how good the choreography was, because I
was just excited to have the same actors around. That's kind of where my brain went.
It was nice, and they definitely are very passionate actors about their characters. They put in the work. They make the duels look great.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people who hate on the whole Hayden Christensen portrayal, but I've had no issues with it.
If George Lucas liked it,
it's good enough for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like George Lucas is right there during those movies. He was, and if you watch, if you guys
Actors
don't...
only say what's written, and if,
Well, that's
if
exactly,
what's
like,
written
I
is
don't
like kind of
blame-
meh.
It's not just that. It's you gotta like. If you don't like Hayden's acting, I really suggest that you watch the behind the scenes of episode 2 and 3, and you can literally see George Lucas talking to Hayden, and Hayden asking George Lucas, "Oh, you don't like? Do you want me to do this or do you want me to do that?" And so they were working very close together. And Hayden apparently had a lot more of an edgier Darth Vader vibe early on in his portrayal of him. And George told him to stop because he's like, this is the story of becoming.
Yeah, you're not
You
that
know,
far
you're
yet.
not Darth Vader yet. So, like, he did. And, you know, there's a lot going on with Anakin as a character as a whole.
Yeah.
There is a lot of things, you know.
A lot of layers.
You've been a slave. You lived in a shithole. You know, you've been abused.
You're not actually that old at this point either.
Yeah.
Like, how old is he supposed to be in episode 2?
Episode 2 is like 15, 16, right? Something like
Around there. I want to say
Yeah,
maybe
like
like
he's-
17, 18 maybe.
Like he's not old. Like everyone's always like, he's a whiny brat kid, and it's like he is a kid. He's a
that.
whiny
Yeah,
brat
he's
kid.
literally a Padawan, whiny brat kid whose mom just died.
Yeah, there's
or
a
he's
lot
having
to
horrible
him.
dreams of his mom dying. Like, Yeah.
About 19. He's 19.
and then all you get told by all of the people that are close, quotations close to you is, "Oh, mind your feelings, Anakin. Oh, don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
well,
Oh, people are dying hard. You know,
trust
don't-
me, like,
don't
my-
worry about that.
My
You're part of
general
the Force. It's fine."
my general mindset of Jedi is actually like they're idiots.
Well, for the most part,
that's a
it's-
lot of my general opinions
the
of
thing
how
is,
the Jedi think.
They've never had to deal with that either, right? Because they literally don't take people on that have attachments that are too old. That's why they usually have, like, from basically babies, like, or very, very young, you're taken to be a Jedi. And Anakin, you would think that they would have the common sense to be like, hey, this guy already has attachments. Maybe we should look at this from a different angle.
Nah.
all of these
I
old
don't know.
people, all
It
of
always it
We'll
goes.
just put him on the council, but he's not going to be master.
but
It's
the
fine.
but the other thing is
That's
like
just Windu being like, giving the middle finger to him. You can
So
be on the
cool.
council, but you're not a master.
Boom, roasted.
yeah, I don't know. Jedi mindset is
Yeah,
just
we can get
always-
into the whole Jedi. They make a lot of mistakes. I mean, I'm still tilted about the Ahsoka trial. Like, freaking drives me crazy. So that's just.
But that's not the focus
That's
here.
That's not the focus of the
That's
episode.
just a
We
Jedi.
could
That's
always-
why they're all
we
dead.
could, we could have a whole episode just raging on Jedi later.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like I would have a very different opinion than you guys, just with a lot of the other source
Okay, well,
material.
you're-
But
I don't know. I'm talking to someone who's read a lot of lore. I feel like he'd be on the same side. Jedi are stupid.
they are stupid, but I mean, during the High Republic, they weren't as bad.
That's fair.
But that's 250 years before the Skywalker saga, essentially. Simpler times.
Simpler
Yeah, I
times.
was.
You think
joking-
Yoda could have carried such wisdom over?
No, I was joking around with my one friend about it, where it's like Yoda lived 800 years of like not really ever seeing a Sith and stuff like this, and you know, it's super chill, and like, you know, he's doing all his lightsaber and Force training. He's like this great Jedi, and then it's like this Skywalker guy shows up, and then all of a sudden, like the last 100 years of his life was a total shit show.
Well, the other thing is, like, Yoda is obviously a very wise character, but if he's gone through so much without the Sith, why is he so educated? I don't even know how he's so educated on the Sith as he is, where he's just like, yes, this. But I guess maybe they're not, because they sucked.
Lots
at
of
dealing
text
with
about it.
Well, the Sith has been around in hiding, right? Like,
Well,
the
yes.
Sith obviously wasn't. And then during.
How long was it? No, it was only a century, so he must have lived through some Sith, right? Or is it, how long were they gone for?
For, like, the old. Like, when the Sith disappeared.
Yeah.
Let me double check. But I know, like, in the High Republic, which is 250 years, the whole point is that, like, there was Sith, like, in the things that happened, like, the Sith was there. And, like, they were around. I'm just trying to pull it up here when it actually talks about the timeline. I don't know what is canon and what is legends. That's the fun part of looking up Star Wars.
the disturbing part about Star Wars.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say Star Wars is one of those series that's literally like an iceberg. Like,
Really?
there's a lot of series where you can say, oh, there's a lot of things structured in the iceberg way, but like Star Wars, it's like,
But there's
canon
reason-
and stuff, and then it's like, now there's a
But
giant
there's reason
iceberg.
for that. It's like Disney purchase and what Disney says is canon.
Yeah,
And
that's
all
what
the-
it is. Yeah.
yes, but
so
it's still,
anything
like-
that comes out post, I think it's April 2015, is
Or that
automatically canon.
Or that Disney says is canon.
Yeah, so
It
like
makes
Clone
canon.
Wars originally, like the animated series, wasn't technically canon until Disney was like, yeah, it's canon.
Like Disney's the
They
almighty
had someone.
gods.
They had someone do a check over. They're like,
Well, there's even like certain characters that like are talked about in Clone Wars. Like I think they mentioned Darth Bane or Darth Revan, one of them or both of them.
yeah,
And they're
unfortunately,
like
not caught up in
not
Clone Wars, so.
canon, but they are canon. Like
But yeah,
parts of
the
their
main,
history
the main
is
thing
canon.
is that when Disney take over, Disney onward canon, and then anything released comic book wise or book wise is canon.
Yeah.
But anything they deem canon can be canon. That's why it gets really confusing because ever since the original trilogy came out, there were books coming out, like extended canon.
Well, in the Legends, Luke has like 2 kids.
Yeah, and wives and stuff. Like,
yeah, like he has like a whole. It's a whole different story.
Like more than one.
And
I'm pretty sure more than one wife too. Yeah.
He's almost a completely different character.
Yeah.
Because, like
Leia
they show in
kids.
like Mando and stuff. Well, more in the Boba Fett, they show Luke's like, he's too attached. But in the Legends material, Luke has his own family and attachments. He realizes that attachments aren't something to shy away from. It's just something you need to be able to control your emotions. Like attachments aren't a bad thing, right?
It's not the end of the world.
Well,
but yeah,
that's one of the huge things that I have issues with.
That's
Jedi,
where the term
like,
Legends comes from. Legends is everything that's like been released for Star Wars lore that isn't canon anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, which is and then there's the whole argument with whatever George Lucas says is canon. And whatever Dave Filoni says is canon.
As a whole, there's the Filoni canon.
We're getting to the Harry Potter canon here now, too.
Honestly, kind of.
Star Wars is a spectrum when it comes to their fans. There's like the fans that are like, if George Lucas says it, it's canon. If Dave Filoni said it may as well come from George mouth. It's canon.
So shall it be written.
Which, honestly, for me, I kind of agree with the whole George Lucas and Filoni thing. Like, I don't think George Lucas is the greatest character writer per se. I think he's an amazing world builder. Like
no, but the fact that Filoni is literally nicknamed the Walking Lucas Encyclopedia, I think Jon Favreau calls him that multiple
They're like
times.
the perfect duo, really, because it's like George Lucas has created this amazing universe, and Filoni is great at the actual characters.
Yeah,
and,
like filling the universe.
Yeah, and filling it in. Like that may have not been George Lucas' strong side, but it is also his story at the end of the day.
Or it was.
Yeah, unfortunately.
One time.
Bro,
it could have still been.
It's true.
3 of them, at least.
Ooh.
But I wouldn't take the original creators' work either. Right, Disney?
Yikes. With, like, Star Wars, for example, like, there's the gray area, too. There's the anime Star Wars called Visions, which some of those episodes are canon, and some of the episodes aren't technically canon. Because there's a very confusing thing, too, where those were kind of just one-off stories. But I know there's, like, certain ones, like, I don't know, have you seen Star Wars Visions or not?
No, that's the thing with me and Star Wars, it's like...
They're in space, so Studio Trigger did one of them.
Of course. But, like, I've seen, obviously...
That's a good episode.
I've seen episodes 1 to 3, I've seen 6, I've seen up to 7 in the movies, and then the TV shows, and I've watched a chunk of Clone Wars, and that's pretty much it.
With you being, like... an anime and manga fan, I think checking out Star Wars Visions would be pretty interesting. I'd be curious on your opinions later on the road, because it is an anthology series with different animation companies.
It's cool to see Japanese style too, because it's clear that obviously they really enjoy Star Wars too, like they're passionate. And I know that there's been some big people that have been on those projects, like Studio Trigger. I'm pretty sure is one of the people that did one of the episodes.
They do love their space,
and like just even the first episode with the character named Ronan. Completely something we've never seen before with Star Wars.
Is it canon?
I don't know if it's canon. That's the worst part.
It's probably not.
It never is.
Studio Trigger, Cinema Circus, Production IG, Sound Saru, Trigger again, Geno Studio. Basically, there's a bunch, but like the voice acting and everything like that, and they are dubbed versus subbed as well, which is
and like Kevin Penkin, the guy that did. He did the soundtrack for Made in Abyss,
right,
Rising of a Shield Hero. He also was one of the composers for Visions. I think he did episode 4. And
there's also some good like.
He's from Australia, so obviously, like I'm sure Australians love Star Wars too. But
that's true.
He obviously, I'm sure for any composer, it is a massive honor to do works on Star Wars. Which brings me into what we've heard from some people is a complaint of the Kenobi series was that the music was not up to snuff, maybe, to say the least, for a Star Wars project.
Was the first like Star Wars project that John Williams wasn't really involved in as well.
So you think that maybe some fans are just straight up like just saying bad things just because he's not involved?
I don't think I think maybe some of the hardcore fans are like, well, John Williams
he's not part of it, then it's
not part of it. Which I don't think that's fair personally.
I felt like for a lot of Star Wars content, it's always noticeable. And it did feel like there was that, like it didn't feel as noticeable, the music, I feel like. I don't know if that's the biggest negative, but it just didn't feel as recognizable or noticeable in the project. Obviously, the last episode, you got some sort of mix of, like, the Imperial March, which felt kind of accurate because it's not really full Vader, so it kind of fit, I think, personally. Like, it's still not Vader. It's like definitely still a mix of Anakin in there, so it kind of made sense that it wasn't the complete version of the song.
No, I completely agree with that though. I think I don't know. It's also something new though, right?
Yeah, you have to give it a chance, right? Like at the end of the day, but I do think it was not as strong as some Star Wars content, I guess. But I don't think it was necessarily bad either. You know? What did you think of the music, Ray?
In all honesty, it was one of the things that really didn't cross my mind all that much, which probably leaves me feeling it wasn't
like a similar way where like
I was gonna say it obviously was not as impactful as like some of the original music where it's like
it's iconic.
Yeah, it's like you hum it to yourself.
You notice
like,
it, yeah.
Like, yeah, but yeah, I was gonna say you guys break it up like the sound design, like the music especially. I'm kind of like, can I even hum a song from this? And the answer is probably no. So, I mean, that's going to be my answer for that. It's just, for me, it wasn't memorable, but I might not have been as focused on it as you guys. And I'm not sure how many guys, how did you guys watch the whole, how many times have you guys seen the series, these episodes? Did you only watch it
I've probably
once?
watched each episode twice, at least.
And how many times?
About the same as well, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I've watched one each.
Because I watched pretty much the whole series with Gray. I think the only episode I didn't watch with you was episode 5, I think.
5.
And I watched that twice with another.
I think it was 4 and 5 that we didn't see together, but we did 1, 2, and 3, and then the final one. So
yeah, I've seen each episode twice. So I've seen the series twice.
Yeah. So
definitely worth it though.
There might be things that obviously you guys
I guess
remember a little bit better.
To conclude, I would say overall, if you're a Star Wars fan, and the big thing is if you're a Kenobi fan, you're gonna like it.
Yeah, if you like the prequel trilogy, it does a lot of.
Yeah, I guess that's even a better point.
Yeah.
If you're a prequel, you're gonna like it for the most part.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an OG, hard to say because we're not old people. No offense, we're just not old. We grew up with. We grew up with the prequels.
Yeah, we did grow up with the prequels.
Unfortunately, we're the prequel generation, so you know that you can.
Well, you know what? At least we're not what
sequel generation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that what we're calling it? The sequel generation.
Yeah, the prequel, the originals, and the sequels.
So yeah, at least we're not that. But I don't know.
Hey, whatever gets you into Star Wars is like, you know what? At the end of the day, like.
You'll find something good somewhere.
If the sequels are what you like, and it got you into this fandom, and it is a crazy, like anything, it's a crazy fandom, but there's a lot of cool stuff, and you can meet a lot of cool people through it. So, you know what? Whatever gets you into it, gets you into it.
Exactly. And with Obi-Wan, the show itself, like, there is a little bit of everything, I feel like, for the fans of Star Wars.
It's fun for everyone, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it properly sets up the original trilogy, gives you a nice epilogue to the prequel trilogy, and just shows you some pretty good fights, in my opinion, overall. Obviously, the music was kind of meh that we kind of discussed already. But otherwise, most of the characters were great. I found most of the casting was obviously,
good.
we knew most of the characters ahead of time, but
some of the character designs were a little bit of a miss for me in terms of the alien, more of the alien races. Like the Grand Inquisitor felt like a little bit of a letdown in terms of his
I will
design.
say, at least from what I could tell, there was a lot more. Like they still utilized a good amount of practical effects.
Yeah, there are a lot of practical effects
for the designs of even just the offshoot aliens in the background,
CGI.
which I'm big fan of. Like especially practical.
It was nice to see real lightsaber battles, of course.
Yeah,
I guess like. As a prequel person, that's like, I feel like that's usually the reason you like the prequels is because you like the crazy lightsaber battles.
Well, when you try and draw the lines, it's like originals versus the prequels in terms of even some of like the action like that. You're kind of like, whoa, this is like these are a lot weaker.
Yeah, the choreography in the sequels, you may as well have been the originals. Like that's how bad it is. Like
yeah.
Sad time.
But yeah.
Great. You should really watch the 2 most recent films. It'd be very amusing.
Yeah.
Overall, I would say I feel like I'm okay with recommending it for anyone that enjoys Star Wars or that likes Star Wars.
I'm content with the series overall. Like,
and
could have been better.
I would like a season 2 of watching Obi-Wan do stuff with Qui-Gon, and if they use Liam Neeson even more, I'm totally down.
Which is great. I was so happy with that. So fun fact. So I was watching the last episode on my phone. And that scene happens, right? He walks into the desert, or he rides onto the desert, and you see the Force Ghost before he even turns. And that's when someone called me, and I had to answer the phone.
Oh, no way.
And it was like, I was stressing out, because I was like, no, I just need to know if that's Qui-Gon or not. Please.
Yeah, it's funny. I trolled Gray. We were watching, and he's like, oh my gosh, is it Qui-Gon? And I was like, you only see the back. And he's like, are you kidding me?
I'm like... And I'm like, and I was like, it better be Liam Neeson.
yeah. He's like, you better be leaving. I'm like, you only see the back. And he's like, oh, and then he turns around and obviously he talks, and it's literally.
I'm like,
it's perfect.
I was like, it is Liam Neeson.
It's so great.
I'm happy he came back too, and it wasn't just like a like.
Yeah, it wasn't even just like or even if he just turned around where
or
it's
a
just
deep,
you see him,
or a deep pick. It was Liam Neeson.
And he says at least a few lines.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like they didn't take him out of the scene.
And it was perfect lines too, like you weren't ready to see. Yeah. Oh, he's still teaching.
even
so many lessons, Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
you're gonna have white hair by the time you learn.
Yeah, Qui-Gon is probably one of the characters I wish I knew more actually about. He's probably one of the more interesting
There's some really
Jedi.
good novels about him.
Yeah, he seems like one of the best.
Also because like he goes against the Council, and that's probably one of the.
You also have to keep in mind, like I don't know how much Star Wars, but he was trained by Count Dooku.
Yeah, I know
was trained by Yoda.
Who was trained by Yoda?
Yes. But yeah, I think from my limited extended lore, I would say some of my favorite are Dooku and Qui-Gon. They just.
Even
I guess
like
it's because
too.
I think because they rub the Council the wrong way, and they're not just like take everything the Council.
Yeah, they don't take they're like there is better. There might be better ways to go about.
But that's
things.
the whole Grey Jedi concept.
Yeah, it makes it better.
Grey Jedi.
Yeah,
Grey.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
But that is the actual gray area, right?
For Obi-Wan, I mean, they've been doing the Star Wars. I feel like a lot of the live action shows pretty well, so I'd be down to see more.
Yeah, and obviously we have the new Star Wars live shows coming out soon.
We definitely probably didn't cover everything. Obviously, this is just our.
No, there's definitely Easter eggs
as
we
we're recording
didn't
this,
talk about.
the episode happened yesterday.
We're mainly just we're just chatting about it ourselves. It's kind of like our group conglomerate. We haven't talked about it too much.
Round table kind of.
Yeah, we
thing,
tried to keep it all to ourselves so we can talk about it. But I would say, if you like Star Wars or interested, and I would say it's a good series to watch. It had some moments but like anything, there was good and bad. So
exactly, and that's what makes it okay in my opinion.
And I'm not gonna go out and tweet at anyone or be a horrible person.
That it was bad or good, vice versa.
No, well, for me, did you enjoy it?
Yeah,
was there enjoyment out of the series?
100%.
Well, and then there you go. Like if we're gonna try and be critical, then you can be critical. But it's like, did you enjoy it? And it's like, okay.
Is there rewatch value? Yes.
I just want to add, you're totally allowed to be critical of a series, but in no reason there's never a place or a time to be racist or offensive to anyone. You also remember. Actors are acting the character, okay? If they're doing if you hate a character because of they're designed to be hated, the actor's doing a good job.
Exactly, 100%.
The actor's doing their job. I've
had that issue in other shows where I'm like, I just hate this character, and then they turn out to be the villain, and I was like, this is perfect.
They're doing their job, and like you said earlier with hating, they're reading their lines. You don't. Yeah,
it's what's written, and then trust me, there's so many readings of lines in shows where it's like if the director didn't like the way you read that, they'll be like, "Nah, do it again."
Yeah, do it again. Change it.
It's great to be critical, and that's how you get hopefully better content. But it's never okay to attack an individual either.
No, and unfortunately, that happens a lot in the Star Wars community, which is super messed up.
I just want to do our part to be like, hey, be more positive.
Yeah,
it's totally okay to be.
No, you can voice your own opinions on why you think it's bad. But don't attach it to anything. Just say why you think it's bad. Yeah, and that's it.
Or hey, this character was written poorly because of XXX. You don't need to attack anyone.
You don't need to be like, oh, it's this fault or this is because of this. Because the other thing is, you probably don't know.
Yeah, guys, find someone, have a conversation with them about it. It's a much better way to get your anger out. You don't have to go out and attack an individual. And, I just wanted to say that just so you guys understand. It's okay to dislike something, but it's never okay to go after someone.
No.
But in conclusion, series was enjoyable. I would totally watch season 2 if it comes out.
I'd rewatch the series too. It's got a good rewatch value in my opinion.
But yeah, as far as that episode, great. Thanks for joining us for this episode.
Yeah, it's always.
And I've been Connor.
And I'm Matt.
I'm Grey.
And we will see you next week.